What does it mean to master the game of life? Like any game, it requires a fundamental understanding and application of the rules. But living in today's on-demand society is making this nearly impossible as our attention is increasingly being fought over and monetized by others. Will Moore's mission is to help you hit the reset button by providing a new set of game rules based on time-proven universal principles and modern science to gamify your life by making it fun and addictive to replace your habits in the 5 core areas of your life proven to lead to true happiness. Ready, player one?
Hey, welcome, y'all, to another fun-filled, fun-packed, just packed all around awesomeness episode, hopefully. No, not hopefully, it will be, it always is, of Gamify Your Habits. Today we got somebody very special, super excited to have Mr. Daniel Mangena. He's an abundance expert, abundance in love, wealth, health, all the good things that you want a lot of, but not too much of anything, right? I'm sure we'll talk about balance and how that plays into it. But in general, we're really trying to focus the show into what our listeners have told us and viewers what they really want, which is just really getting into and nailing the pain point that people have, that our target audience, you all have and are struggling with, and how we can help solve it. Not just give some generic, stinky old advice that is going to go in one ear and out the other, and you're never going to do anything with it, but actually give you something that gives you that first small step to reduce the friction to actually get to the point where you can form a habit. Because remember, habits don't care if they're good or bad, helping or hurting. Either way, they're going to compound, they're going to do their thing. And on the show here, we talk about how to gamify those habits and use behavioral science, the latest in technology, universal principles to make it fun to build that momentum. So super excited. Hey, man.
I was freaking out. I thought I wasn't going to make it, so I'm glad that I did.
You're here. You made it. I know. You know what?
I
think I'm going to be switching the format. I love these IG lives because it's cool because you can get like questions and stuff from people, and it's a neat format. But technologically wise, it's just a little tricky because you can't use a desktop. You have to be on a phone or a tablet. Not many people have done them before, so figuring out how to do it. So, anyways, you I think are going to be our last IG live, and then we're moving to like a different format. So let's get it in. Yeah,
Let's do it.
stuff. So thanks for being on the show, man. I just kind of introduced you. Why don't you tell a little bit about yourself and just the 1-minute version of kind of how you got here, how you're helping people. And I want to just really jump right into your top habits to help people and some tips that we can maybe talk about how to gamify those habits. So
Awesome.
Floor's all yours, man. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, buddy. So yeah, I'm Daniel Mangena. I have come through the ups and downs of life that we experience, and I'm actually one of those weird people that's never actually really had a job. I've always kind of had to be self-motivated because of the simple fact that I've always kind of had to find my own dinner, for want of a better phrase. I think one of the things about people who, like me, have never really had a regular occurrence of having a regular paycheck, needing to be on top of it all the time, because if you don't make any money, you don't eat, is a really big thing. And then when you're a business owner, on top of being an entrepreneur, when you have people that you're responsible for, then again, you really need to be on top of it. So I started my first business, I think, when I was about 7, maybe 6. I've only had 2 jobs in my life. I worked in a cinema when I was 16 or 15 for a couple of months, one summer. And then in my 20s, I was building up a business and I needed to pay the bills. And so I worked in a call center for about 6 months. Other than that, I've always been on my own dime.
Good for you. Yeah. Mad respect for the self-made entrepreneur that builds it up from nothing. It's not easy. It's a lot easier in life to go the 9-to-5 route, but it's way
100%.
less satisfying. Way less satisfying.
I would say,
right?
yeah, I really couldn't do it now. I really couldn't.
Well, it's funny. I've never really heard of, I don't know. I'm sure there's studies done. I've never really, I guess, delved into it, but I feel like there's a lot of factors that go into being an entrepreneur. And these days, it's like everybody wants to be an entrepreneur because it's like the whole on-demand, start your own business society. And it's great. But what people don't talk about is how I feel like certain brains are just kind of programmed to be. And I'm not saying if you're not programmed, you can't. But I think somebody like me, for instance, like you're just saying, I could never do it. It just triggered something in my head where I've always said that same thing. Like, there's no way I could ever do a 9-to-5. I've been fired from like regular jobs. I have a problem with authority. I like to do things my way, like all the bad. all the bad, but then at the same time, I was able to start, build, create from scratch a business, and we sold for quite a good chunk of money. And now I'm on to my next, and I've been doing this for quite a while, which I love and is my passion. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I worked for somebody else. What's your take on that?
My take on that is it goes even deeper, because I believe there are entrepreneurs, there are business owners, and there are business operators. So I wouldn't even class myself as the best business owner. That's why I'm really, really so grateful for the team that support me. Being able to run a business, I'm a great entrepreneur. I can come up with ideas, I can see the gaps, I can come up with opportunities, I can bring things together, I can organize. But in terms of like managing that organization, which for me is what a business owner is, a business owner can manage that successfully. The idea of me of building up something to exit is horrifying. I don't think I could do it. So like me and my brother have a business that we're building up to exit right now. And it's like my role does not include anything on the day-to-day operations or anything about, but in terms of like the wider plan about what we're going to do and where we're going in terms of the vision and even dealing with the problems that come up as we run along, cool. But then the execution of that on a day-to-day micro basis, again, requires skilled operators. And I think one of the things I'm really passionate about is ending this idea of job shaming, because we all have a very important role to play in the creation and delivery of values. And I think it's time for us all to honor where our role is in that and then to play into that fully.
Oh man, dude, I love that. And that's so true. Job shaming, I like that word. That just ties to something I'm always talking about, which is like, you've got to understand what you in particular are really good at, what you really love. And weaknesses, I always put in quotes because I don't even like that word, but the things you're not so naturally gifted at and don't love, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't
Nothing wrong
make
with
you
it.
a bad person. Just
Sup-
stay
Sup-
away from it.
Superman had to stay away from kryptonite, right? Other than that, he was like the strongest person in the world. And if we stop looking at them, and here's the thing, everywhere we are not as strong, there's someone who has the opportunity to step in and be in their strength. Like everywhere that we need to be supported, there's another space for someone to step in and be in their superpower. Just the way that our superpowers are going to be coming in and stepping in and filling a gap in someone else's. And I think that's where teamwork, where collaboration, where coming together really start to shine through. And if we could just honor that, instead of paranoia, instead of putting ourselves down, instead of wishing and wanting that we're trying to be someone else, but we could just be fully in ourselves, fully in our gifts and fully in what we have to offer. There's just so much magic in that.
Yeah, I love that because, like I was saying, it ties into the shame part. I think a lot of people grow up and we're naturally put into boxes, whether we like it or not. And it's just a matter of like, are you going to let yourself be put into a box? And sometimes you get put into that. You go to school, there's a standard testing system. And it's like, if you don't do well in that particular environment, does that make you a failure? Or does that just mean that's not your field of expertise, that you haven't found your thing that you're really good at? And it's sad to see how many people go through life being like, oh, I suck, my brain's broken, that typical victim mentality versus, okay, well, I'm not good at that, but what am I good at so I can focus on that? And I'm going to go all in and I'm going to outsource and let somebody else take care of this other stuff.
Exactly. There's this cartoon song thing that my kid used to love. And it was like, I can swim, I can swim, I can swim. Look at me, I'm a fish. And then the fish goes on the land and it's like, oh, I can't swim on the land. And then it turns into like a cow or something like that. Look at me, I can run, I can run, I can run. And then it comes to a tree and it gets stuck. So I can't climb the tree. And then it turns into a little monkey and the monkey climbs up the tree and then turns into a bird. It can fly. We've all got a place in the overall ecosystem that we are in our strength. We should stop beating ourselves up for testing for things that we didn't have the skills for. We didn't have even the physiology for some of us, the mental capacity for in some, like the skill set. It's all okay because we do have a perfect place for us to sit.
I love that. See, this is why I love these conversations. And that wasn't even on the agenda, but that's a really nice little piece. That's such a truism in life. If you're listening to this, just thinking about the fact that like, okay, like, are you in a role that you are particularly good at and enjoy, or are you doing something that you feel like you should be doing and maybe you don't really like it, maybe you're not really that great at it and you're kind of struggling through it? Hate when you hear an entrepreneur or somebody that's made it big be like, just get out of it. Like, no, okay, I understand people need to pay their bills. But what you can do is by recognizing that, figure out, and now, like we were just saying at the top of the show, more than ever, it's easier to start your own thing on the side. So it's like, start that side hustle, figure out like, what are you really awesome at? What are you really passionate about? And if you really love it, the thing is, it doesn't feel like work always. Sometimes it does, as you and I know. There's always going to be days where you're like, this sucks. But in general, when you're doing something that you're super passionate about and love, you're going to be able to find the time and energy. Because I feel like a lot of people make the excuse of, well, I work a 9 to 5. How am I supposed to? Well, at night, if you're just sitting around watching TV, maybe you just start slowly writing down some stuff and like, hey, maybe I can do this, my strengths, weaknesses, that type of stuff. So
I think it's very important as well, as we talk about things that we enjoy, that the discipline aspect of that conversation really kicks in. So this has probably been the most challenging few months of my entrepreneurial career in the last decade, I want to say. It's just been one of those things where everything that can be challenging keeps coming, and you deal with that one and another one comes up, and you deal with that one and another one comes up, and it's been that way. And I thought I was alone, but I was on to Richard Branson's island 6 weeks ago, something like that. And I was there with a load of other higher level entrepreneurs, and a lot of them were saying the same thing. And to Richard was even saying, yeah, like there's some things that haven't really settled down even since post-COVID. There's, a lot of challenging things going on. And I think it's imperative that we get that careers will have challenges. Like, you might not have a job tomorrow because it's economy based and it's in someone else's hand. If you don't own the business, but you run it maybe as a business manager or something, then there are challenges that can come on the back of that. As an entrepreneur, it's your job on a day-to-day basis to stay on top of the other challenges. And if you don't have the discipline, right, and the habituation to show up and address those, you're going to have a horrible time. And so, yes, I think do something that you are passionate about, because that passion, that fire, that desire to want to be a part of it is going to fuel you. But the sustenance is going to come from having the discipline to stick with it when times are hard, to stick with it when things aren't so fun, to stick with it when people are saying that you can't, or to stick with it when you don't feel that you can. So yes, and ensure that discipline is definitely a part of the formula as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is another interesting point for me that I want to talk about for a second, because I think it's so important. Discipline is one of these things that I feel like it doesn't get talked about that much. You hear it time and again, but we're living in a day and age where discipline is becoming so much harder to develop. And I am like 100% convinced of that. And the reason being, look at our parents. My grandfather, when he wanted a glass of milk when he was growing up, had to like go out and like milk the cow. Now it's like you hit a button and you can have the entire world delivered to you in less than an hour, right? Including yourself in a vehicle across town in an Uber. Well, duh, people have less discipline because the way that our brains are wired is the path of least resistance. That goes back to our caveman days where we're trying to save energy so we'll be able to go fight off the saber-toothed tigers and go hunt for our meals. But now that stuff's not in play anymore. So there's like this dichotomy going on with our brains where I think it's very difficult, and that's what caused a lot of stress and anxiety. It's like inside of us, we know that we should be doing more and that there's more we can do, but it's like, oh, but that low-hanging fruit is just so tempting. And you can just sit and binge watch TV or multi-screen 8 different shows at once and play on your phone and social media and not really do anything productive. And you can get away with that. Obviously, you gotta have a job. And even these days, the job market's so strong that you can pretty much, I mean, I don't know how it is where you are, but you go to a restaurant these days. And for me, I've seen a huge drop off in service and just people giving an F about their job, because I feel like they're like, well, this place needs me and they ain't going to fire me. I used to be a server for years growing up in college or in high school. And I just remember my manager always being like really drilling in the importance of how we treat the customers, making sure they have everything taken care of. Now you're lucky to even see your server once, and then they come over and they throw the bill at you and they're like, get out of here, you know? I'm going off on a tangent, but the point being, it's not like it used to be. And I think that it's something we got to be aware of and be careful of, especially this younger generation growing up with like the power to do anything and they're at the press of a button. And that discipline, like you're saying, though, that really is a key to happiness. And being able to do what you say and say what you do and have goals and be like, I'm going to follow through. I'm going to make a commitment to myself and I'm going to do it. And if you can't do that, you're dead in the water.
100%. And I think the point that you made about instant gratification and the wiring that we have in the brain, if it gets used to that all the time, then it's not given any training to actually hold out and to persevere and to stick with it. I think they've done tests on kids, so the ones that are the most successful later, the ones that displayed instant gratification earlier on as a trait. With my son, that's one thing I'm really, really doing my best to instill in him, not giving him that popcorn culture kind of thing, but ensuring that he sees space between desire and experience, because that's a really important trait, I think, to develop.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, same with me. I got 3 sons and I do the same. Yeah.
Oof.
Have you heard about that?
3
that one
boys.
experiment with the dude. I'm in the thick. I got a 7-year-old, almost 4, and 11 months. I don't know how I'm still breathing, to be honest with you, but I'm glad to be here. My wife helps a lot. But so, yeah, I mean, straight up, like there was this famous study. I'm trying to remember what the candy was. I don't know if that's what you were talking about, where they did a study on kids and then followed up with them later in life. Like if they put a piece of candy in front of them and if they grabbed it right away. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, that's the study. Yeah.
Yeah. And so basically the results were the kids that were able to resist the candy, they followed back up later in life, were more, I guess, quote unquote, successful, whatever that means. Right. But I guess in terms of having discipline, I mean, that's what we're talking about, being able to say no to that instant thing.
Immediate candy.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Okay, so let's switch gears here a little bit. I feel like you and I could like rap for days, but I'm trying to keep my shows to around a half an hour. If we go a little longer, that's okay. But I want to talk about what you consider to be the biggest failure habit that you've learned from in your life, meaning like a failure habit that you had at one point in your life and you realize this thing is just decimating my happiness, my momentum, my growth, and you recognize it and perhaps you were able to replace it with something else. So let's start there.
I would say it's definitely thinking that I knew everything, like the habituation of going it without seeking counsel and thinking that I had it all worked out because I knew everything, which for me came painfully from being blessed with the curse of having a lot of success very young without really being tested all that much. So even when the hits did come when I was younger, I didn't understand that those hits were a pause and were an opportunity to step back, reflect, and get support. I went in head first again and then got taken out completely. So now, like, I don't make a move without seeking counsel. I'm always investing in my personal development. I spend multiple 6 figures a year on that. I'm always got a coach. I've always got healers. I've always got people that can mentor me in something that I'm working in or towards, so that I don't go off thinking that I know everything. In fact, I go to every conversation as much as possible, every interaction, regardless of who it's with. It can be with a 5-year-old, as if I know nothing, and I'm open up to seeing what I can take away from that exchange.
That's kind of everything right there. You know, if you can get that one, you're in pretty good shape, because to go through life and think that you have the answers, gosh, man, you're just asking for trouble. And the way that you know, not only your own personal growth of being like, oh, well, I don't need to learn this or that, but the way you come off to other people too. Nobody wants to be around a know-it-all and like, oh no, I have the answer. So it is very true. And it's funny. I feel like this is one that, I don't know how old you are, I won't even ask, but as I've gotten older, I've noticed it gets easier and easier to sort of be like, yeah, of course I don't have the answers. Whereas when you're younger, you're like, yeah, I know everything, right? And I do think there's a correlation there. And again, you know, a lot of stuff we're talking about, they don't teach this stuff in schools. It's not like when I was growing up, they were like, hey, be aware of the fact that, you know, I mean, your parents would be like, you don't know everything, but it's like, oh, those are your parents. They actually taught something in school where like, listen, this is something to be careful of and be aware of. You always want to be growing in life. That's the key to happiness. And if you aren't growing, you're dying and you're not going to be happy. So you need to make sure that you're continually seeking out new information and understanding that you do not know it all. And that would have been very helpful. But I never heard that. It's just people like us in our space that have heard that and get that and have made that part of our lives. But it's not like taught in the mainstream.
But I think the experience is what makes it potent. I mean, sometimes I laugh and I say, well, if I didn't take those hits when I was sort of 20 and 22, 23, I could probably be worth hundreds of millions of dollars right now. But number one, I'd be an utter twat because I wouldn't have had the humbling experiences that I had. And I don't think I would have respected it as much as I do now. And I think this is one of the things that makes life. It's having these experiences, these textures. And it's one of the things that I think that makes it so important that we revel in the things that go wrong. Like I said, this has been one of the most challenging few months of my business career. And yet it's given me the most clarity about what I'm doing going forward. It's given me the most commitment to what I want to do in terms of service and in terms of the legacy that I want to leave from what I'm doing next. But you have to have the capacity, I think, to be able to look at the situation post or during. Post is fine, right? Because generally speaking, it's not going to kill you. but it will only make you stronger if you allow it to make you stronger. You can allow it to make you a victim. You can allow it to make something that you blame people for, or just another event, or it can be something that makes you stronger if you take the opportunity for it to make you stronger. And that's what I personally seek to do.
Failing forward, and this just ties to the bigger picture of just mindset in general, right? Having that mindset of the Carol Dweck. I mix a growth mindset and an owner mindset. As I'd say, growth owner versus fixed victim. And a growth owner is somebody that basically fails forward. Obstacles are temporary roadblocks waiting for solutions. They know they've got everything within them to kick ass, take names, and it's only a matter of time before they get there. And they're going to figure out along the way. And it's not going to always go the way that they plan, and they're going to get whacked, but as long as they have that mindset of, I can't succeed without failure. Like, it's literally not possible. I have to. And again, this isn't something that's really widespread taught in schools. I mean, depending on where you go, depending on your parents, it's kind of a crapshoot. Like, did you get this value? Did somebody instill this into you? Because if you get this one early on, that, to me, that's like one of the biggest things you can do for your happiness and momentum, because everything else becomes incrementally easier when it's like, oh, well, it's just a challenge. All right, let's go. Let's make it fun. How can we get past this? Okay, we failed. And I'm not saying jump up and down for joy. Well, when you have a huge failure, it's going to sting. But yeah, the big difference is knowing, like, okay, all right, that hurt. What did we learn from that? Let's take a step back, and then pivoting into, okay, what action can I take right now to keep growing versus just dwelling in it?
Yeah, but I personally think that the best way to learn that, in my experience, has been to actually not do that at first and then see the other side of it, to have the experience of both sides of it, and then be able to see, oh, hang on, it is much better for me to actually try it this way. I mean, we're in the information age right now. People can learn from my experience and not necessarily need to make the same mistakes that I've made. I'm learning from other people's experiences and not necessarily making the same mistakes that they made, but they're going to be unique experiences that I have to go through, I feel, in order for me to properly have my own human experience. And that means taking some hits. It's like, I've always done martial arts. I've done martial arts since I was about 5 or 6 years old. And ultimately, the way that you are going to learn is by getting in the ring and getting beaten up, right? That's ultimately what it is. It's like, currently my martial arts is jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and unless you get choked out, you're not going to get any better. In fact, as a white belt, you're going to get choked out, but it's just learning to like prolong until the choke out as much as possible. Right. And then you get to blue belts, like, okay, now you learn to do a little bit of choking or whatever, but you're going to get choked out too, but you at least get some hits in. But that's only by doing this. The same with chess as well. Like, you're not going to get better winning all the time, right? Even as a grandmaster, if you're winning all the time, your game's not improving. You're going to get better by losing, learning from those losses and building on them, internalizing it, integrating it, and growing from there.
I love that. I love that. You even tied in a little gamification with the Grandmaster.
It wasn't accidental. Wink, wink.
Well done. Well played. So that's what you just did. I want to pause there because I feel like a lot of people will have maybe heard what we said right before what you just said and kind of been like, yeah, I know, failing forward. And like, the point is, every one of us is like snowflakes in that we're completely unique. Our brains work differently. Certain triggers are going to cause us to be motivated. Certain ones are going to go in one ear, out the other. And what you just did is you took a personal example of what we were talking about and showed how it basically is the same thing. And it's another way to look at it that connected with your why and triggered your like, okay, failing forward, like, okay, I do jiu-jitsu and I'm going to get my ass kicked, and I actually have to get my ass kicked and I have to get choked out if I'm going to become better, right? Everybody listening right now, just think about, what is your jiu-jitsu? What is your getting ass kicked? What is your something in life where you can kind of compare that to? And just that feeling of knowing like, oh yeah, okay, so I failed there. And of course I had to fail because that was the only way I was going to improve. You can apply that to everything in life. And I think a lot of people tend to compartmentalize it and sort of say, they sort of forget, like, it happens over here and they're like, oh, well, that's just with jiu-jitsu, but no, it's everything.
And I think this is part and parcel of this whole thing of instant gratification, because we're in this popcorn society that expects everything to happen like this. People, I think, on an alarmingly increasing rate, aren't open to putting the work in that is going to lead to the improvement because they think it's going to happen like that. It's like building a business. People will come and say, oh, why am I not exiting my business today, hundreds of millions of dollars? You haven't put in the work to build up the customer base and to build something of value that someone's going to want to buy from you. You haven't put the time in to learn the skills. You haven't put together board of directors and standard operating procedures and all of the things, and I think that value of hard work is either getting lost or being put so far in front that we're forgetting about the mindset and the emotional aspect of it too, and people are burning out from just working too hard. But yeah, the instant gratification, I think, is definitely contributing to that perspective, I think.
Yeah. So speaking of these gamification, you dropped one in. And when I say gamification, I use it more broadly than most, where it's sort of like just reducing the friction, like we just talked about, to form a habit or to have something connect with you to where you go, okay, now I want to do this. So it's sort of like tricking your little lizard brain into going, all right, this is fun. This is easy. This is obvious. This is rewarding. This is satisfying. This makes sense. Let's do it. And that's only stage one, though. That's becoming aware. I call it your golden habit, like forming what is like the perfect habit for you for each particular pain point that you have. Because, for instance, like exercise, one of the 5 cores is your physical health. Exercise, what might be good for one person to express that exercise, which is something we all need to do to be happy and healthy, might be for me to play basketball. But for my wife, she's never picked up basketball in her life and she likes going running. I hate running. Like, you could not force me to go running, right? But that's the point. Like, what is it for you that is the most interesting and fun? Because she goes and she's got her headsets and she does all sorts of gamification. People don't even realize it, but when you're putting on your favorite music and you're clearing your head and looking out at nature, that's all stuff. You're getting these dopamine hits that works best for you and your brain, and you in particular, that reduces that friction to be like, okay, this is an easier habit to take. But then step 2 is still taking the action enough times to do that habit. Because even if it's reduced friction, you still may have an excuse of why you don't do it. I know that was a lot, but do you have any examples of your number one habit of basically not feeling like you know it all and not letting your failures dictate how things go? Any tricks or tips that you've kind of used, maybe, that you see you've been able 100%. To do? Go ahead.
Yeah, one of them is something that someone said to me once, or I heard it in a film, but it's always stuck with me. Don't take this all so seriously. None of us are getting out of life alive. Because I found that for me personally, a lot of my identity was tied up in needing to be the person that knew everything and needing to have it right all the time. And the second that I was able to not make it so serious, because at the end of the day, I'm not getting out of this alive, and the impact of what I'm so anxious about was really quite ephemeral, that allowed me to remove the emotional charge from it and be able to flow a lot more. And so that one line for me is definitely a big one.
I love it. Is that like it's become an automatic habit?
Yeah, it's become,
like whenever things start to get...
Sometimes it might take a little bit. I might give myself an hour or a couple of hours to be in my crap a bit, but it always pops up to the surface like, dude, you're not even getting out of this alive. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to die. And if you die, does it even matter anyway if you do die? No. Okay. So
I love it. Right. Before you move on to your next one, I have a similar one that I have each morning in I have my phone reminds me of a few phrases that like I really want to make sure that are beat into my head each day. And one of them is, I was watching a dinosaur show with my kid, and they had this example. It was really cool, of where humans fit in the terms of the history of the planets, and like how long dinosaurs lived versus how long humans have lived. And like, just to see it visually represented, they did it in sheets of paper. And they're like, okay, the history of the world is this much, right? And it's like 35 miles high of just sheets of paper. And then the dinosaurs were this much, right? And it's like this chunk. And then it's like, here's humans. And we're not even like a sheet of paper. And I have it, I literally have that written in a much shorter, cleaner version, but in my notes each morning. Yeah. And I freaking love it, because every morning when I read that, I just am like, dude, just chill. Really, like, it's not going to matter. But am I going to do something? Am I going to make the world better than before I was here? Hopefully. But it's a really short period, and I got a really short time to live. Like, I better enjoy it, and I better live life to its fullest. And I sit around dwelling on all the shit that's going on, before I know it, I'm going to be old and decrepit, and I can't do all these things that I can do now, and I'm going to be regretting it.
That's a great one. We're showing that we matter, but not for this protracted period of time in physical space that we think we do, because we're not even around. For this protracted period of time, we're here and then we're gone. And I think when we do that, it definitely helps bring it into perspective, for sure.
Love it. Okay, so, and sorry, I interrupted you. You were going to say there was another one. Do you remember what it was?
Oh, yeah, it was another one. It was, I remember that once, I think it was about 2015 or 16, something like that. I was really freaking out about something, and something that I thought someone was talking about or saying about me or something like that. And my mate was like, D, have you ever killed anyone? No. Ever harmed small children? No. Ever done any harm to someone willfully? No. Then why do you care so much? So no. Why do you think that it's such a big deal? Is your ego so big that you think everything's about you? And not too long after that, I saw this meme where there's this guy pointing up at the heavens saying, Lord, save me from my haters. And it's got that Michelangelo thing of the hand of God pointing down, and God says, man, nobody's thinking about you. And it's like, I have that image in my head, and it just reminds me every time that I start to allow my emotional state to get impacted by what I think other people may or may not be saying. I remember that if anyone has enough time out of their life that they should be focusing on to think about you, they probably deserve your pity and not your attention. And that's kind of the way that I seek to shift my mind around that.
Love that, dude. Yeah, that's another really good one, right? Just that universal principle of don't give a F about what people think, because everybody's got their own things going on. And it's just crazy how much time. And that's another one that as you get older, I think that it becomes easier to not care as much. Just naturally. I think when you're younger, it's just like you feel like everybody's got a microscope on you. In fact, I just read something the other day, like in Reddit, and I'm going to butcher the exact quote, but it ties to exactly what you're saying. And it was really interesting. It said, things I wish I'd known before I was 50 years old. And one of them was, when you're young, you think everybody's talking about, you're worried about what everybody's talking about you. When you get a little bit older, you think some people are talking about you, but you don't quite care as much. And then when you get past 50, you realize nobody was ever talking about you and nobody cared. And I was just like, the way it was put was brilliant, right?
I love it. I love that one. Yeah. I think that also ties to what we were saying earlier about with age comes wisdom, right? And we get the wisdom to know with age that probably wasn't that deep.
And so here I am, and I know you too, we're trying to help people, right? And help people not when they're 50, because ironically, it's a lot harder to change somebody when they're 50. Like any good habits that they've had, they're not that they can't. But to me, I'm all about getting to these youngies, the teens and the 20s, because they're starting out in life. They've maybe learned a bunch of failure habits along the way and that are hurting them and building negative momentum in their lives. Because habits don't care if they're good or bad, helping or hurting. They're going to compound over time, right? And so you want to get it sooner than later. But like you said, it's trickier. And this one person that I'm actually talking to right now, it hit me when I was talking to him the other day. Like, he's the stuff we're talking about, super concerned, and just feels like everybody's watching him and everybody's talking about him and the way he comes off. And I was thinking about that quote I just told you, and now that we're talking about it, and it's like my goal with him is to get him to see the stuff that we're seeing, you and I, but at young 20s. And it's using some of these things, like, and that's how I do it, and everybody's different, but using some of these tips and tricks to sort of help you hack your brain into seeing things a little bit differently. One of the things that I do is this thing called CBRP. It's an acronym, and just for me, when dwelling, it works really well. And similar to you, I don't use it every single time right away, but usually it'll come in at some point. But if something bad happens or I start to dwell on something, my habit that I'm trying to form is CBRP, which is catch, breathe, remind, reflect, and pivot. And the catch is basically catch that thought that's doing absolutely nothing, but just making you miserable and sucking your energy and making you a less productive, happy human being. And then the B is for breathe, like take a huge breath. Breathing is something I never used to do when I was younger, and I've realized as I've gotten older, like, I don't meditate, but just a deep breath to just step back and just put things in perspective is so helpful. Because when you're doing that short breathing, you literally, physically, like, your brain, you can't step out of it. But if you're like, okay, and then the R is for remind and reflect, which is basically like, all right, what's going on here? Is this really that bad in the greater scheme of things? And I actually tend to go to my piece of paper in the history of the world. I'm like, I'm just this tiny little and this is just one, not even a speck of sand within that piece of paper. I'm not even going to remember this in a week. Get over it, dude. And then it's like, okay, what can I do? Then the P is the most important part, which is the pivot. Like, okay, what can I do right now to take action to make this better, to solve it, to learn from it? And sometimes you can't do. Sometimes things happen and there's nothing you can do about them. And in that case, then I'll just be like, okay, but what can I take action? Like, there's nothing I can do about that. So let me throw myself and distract myself into something that I know is going to make me feel good, because I'm going to be growing.
Exactly. We have to be in a conducive space to grow.
Yeah. So my CBRP is kind of like don't take things so seriously. None of us are getting out alive.
Yeah.
Similar thought. That helps activate your, like, Huge.
Yeah, and I would say, phrases like people might have phrases like I have, but I think understand yourself and know the framework that you need. Because sometimes you're not going to be physically, like you're going to be in your sympathetic nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system. You're going to be fired and wired. So maybe you need to take that breath and slow down and then go to make the statement and reaffirm that and then connect in with it and visualize around it. So I think it's important for whoever's listening and watching this to understand themselves and know what works for them. Most of the time I can just say it, but sometimes I do need to stay in bed for 20 minutes longer so I can just slow my breath down and I do need to go and get some fresh air. I do need to go to the gym and get a workout in order to sort myself out. I do need to go and meditate or whatever the thing is, so you can be in the space to plant those seeds so that you can have a different frame of mind.
I love that. Right. And so I like just kind of ending this with everybody find your own phrase. So when you're feeling really overwhelmed, anxiety, stress, that feeling of like the world is caving in on me and there's nothing I can do about it, find your little phrase, right? Mine's CBRP, we talked about. Yours is don't take things seriously. None of us are getting out alive. Right. And don't beat yourself up if it doesn't come to you right away. Like I said, this is a habit in training for me. When it's really bad, it's harder for me to do that. And like you said, sometimes you need to like, what works for you? Maybe go to the gym. Like, where can you just take your mind off it? But what you're saying is kind of the same thing I'm doing it, but you're not thinking about it this way, is you're pivoting. You're doing something that is not going to have you just sit there and dwell in it, because that's the worst thing you can do. Because then you just sink down into this little hole and nothing's getting done and you're feeling worse and worse and your energy and your vibe and your mindset are all crumbling versus like, okay, maybe it's a workout. Maybe it's a run like my wife, whatever it is. So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Well, dude, this was amazing.
Enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, really great stuff. Thank you. I feel like we could probably wrap on a lot of these things all day long. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Where can people find you and learn more about you?
Dreamwithdan.com. Easiest way to do it. Dreamwithdan.com. Easiest place.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm going to summarize these show notes. I'm going to have some cool clips we're going to pick out, and we'll be posting those. We'll tag you. So let's keep in touch, man. Great chatting with you. All right, thanks, everybody.
Take care.
That's it for the Gamify Your Habits podcast with Will Moore. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to visit moremomentum.com to learn how you can gamify your life.